3 years after I came home for good, Savannah still felt like a place I was only borrowing. The rain that night hit the cobblestones like it had a grudge, and Rex, my 5-year-old German Shepherd, walked beside me with that quiet, professional focus that used to keep men alive. I wasn't out looking for trouble. I was looking for silence. But silence doesn't always get a vote. Rex stopped so hard the leash snapped tight. His ears lifted. His body went rigid. And the low growl in his chest wasn't fear. It was recognition. The kind that says, something is wrong. Then I saw her. A young woman stumbling out of the darkness near the old warehouses. Soaked, shaking, hair plastered to her face, eyes wide like she'd just watched the world crack open. She wasn't dressed for the storm. She was dressed for a normal life. The kind that gets stolen in one bad minute. When she caught me watching, she didn't flirt. She didn't freeze.
We're almost there.
She
Just
begged.
stay with me, all right?
Please, she gasped. They took my sister. And in that moment, I understood something I didn't want to understand. Because I'd been Special Forces once, and I'd sworn I was done running toward danger. But Rex was already pulling, already choosing the dark. And the girl's voice sounded like someone else's prayer I couldn't ignore. Rain combed Savannah's cobblestones, and the river wind tasted of salt and rust, as if the city were exhaling old stories back into the night. Ethan Walker kept his porch light off, not because he feared the dark. He had lived inside it for years, but because light invited questions. And questions, Ethan had learned, were little hooks. They caught in the ribs. They tugged memories loose. They made a man speak about things he'd rather keep buried under sandbags of routine. Savannah, Georgia was beautiful in the way a bruise could be beautiful. Deep colors, tender edges, history pressed into every brick. Gas lamps glowed like watchful fireflies along Bay Street. Live oaks stretched their black arms over the sidewalks, their Spanish moss hanging in slow, mournful curtains. Tourists came for ghost tours and pralines. Ethan came for quiet. He was 35, white, broad-shouldered without trying. The kind of frame built from hard miles rather than gym mirrors. His hair was clipped short, brown with a faint sun fade at the edges, as if his head still remembered foreign skies. A neatly trimmed beard sharpened his jawline and hid the tiny scar that crossed his chin. One souvenir among many. His eyes were the color of river stone, pale, watchful, hard to read. People who met him for the first time often made the same mistake. They thought he was cold. He wasn't cold. He was careful. Something had happened to him. More than the war, more than the mission. There had been a moment, years ago, when he'd learned how quickly a life could vanish, and how useless it was to bargain with fate. Since then, Ethan spoke politely, smiled when required, paid his bills on time, and kept his heart like a locked footlocker. The only creature with a key was the dog. Rex was 5 years old, a traditional German shepherd with the classic black saddle across his back and rich tan legs that looked dipped in warm coffee. He was big. Not the puffed up kind of big that barked to impress, but the quiet, working kind. The kind that moved with purpose, as if each step were an answer to a question only he could hear. His muzzle was dark, his ears always listening, and his amber-brown eyes held an unsettling intelligence. Rex had a few silver hairs along his snout already, earned from stress rather than age. To strangers, Rex could look intimidating. To Ethan, Rex looked like home. They had found each other in the middle of Ethan's old life, when Ethan still wore a uniform and the world made sense in coordinates. Rex had been assigned, trained, and tested until he became more than a dog. He became a partner, a compass, a second heartbeat. And when Ethan left the life behind, Rex came with him. Not as property, but as proof that loyalty still existed in a world that loved taking things away. Tonight, the storm pressed against the windows like a begging hand. Ethan had been sitting at his kitchen table, turning a mug slowly between his palms.
Please don't leave me!
Watching the rain streak down the glass.
You have to help us!
He hadn't even been drinking coffee, just holding warmth because it was easier than holding grief. Rex lay near the doorway, a calm shadow on the floorboards, his breathing steady. Then his head snapped up. Not the casual lift of a dog hearing a squirrel. This was sharper, military sharp. Rex rose in one fluid motion, muscles tightening, ears forward. A low growl started deep in his chest, a sound like thunder trapped behind teeth. Ethan's spine straightened. "What is it, boy?" he murmured. Rex moved toward the door, nose high, tasting the air. Another growl, heavier now, as if the night outside had just spoken a language Rex didn't like. Ethan's pulse responded before his mind did. The old wiring, the old warning system, the part of him that had learned to trust the dog more than his own peace. Rex pawed at the door once,
They're
impatient.
coming.
Then again.
I saw the lights just past the
Ethan
ridge.
stood,
We have to move
grabbed
right
his
now.
rain
All right,
jacket,
I hear you. Let's
and
go.
clipped the leash on with hands that didn't shake. He didn't own a gun. He didn't want one. But he owned a flashlight and a mind trained to read danger like Braille. The door opened. The rain hit them both like cold truth. Savannah at night could feel like a dream and a threat at the same time. The streets near the historic district were quiet.
All
The
right, Mia, this
lamplight
is it.
blurred by
You
sheets
take the
of
high
rain.
ground with the dog. Don't look
Water
back. I'll
collected
draw 'em
in the
off.
grooves
Get
of
to
the
rendezvous.
cobblestones,
Go.
reflecting orange light like melted coins. The river wind carried the smell of brackish water, wet wood, and something metallic, like old chains. Rex didn't pull wildly. He guided. Ethan followed, boots splashing, mind narrowing into focus. He recognized the sensation with a grim familiarity. The world shrinking to a tunnel where only the next 10 seconds mattered. They moved toward the old port side, where warehouses hunched along the edges of the river like sleeping giants. Most were repurposed now. Breweries, shops, event spaces. But some remained abandoned, windows dark, fences half collapsed,
They're
memories
close.
trapped inside.
Stay right behind
Rex's
the dog
growl
and don't make a
returned,
sound.
quieter but constant, like an engine idling.
I heard them. They're close. We
Ethan's
need to go.
breath
I know.
fogged in the rain.
Stick right behind the dog.
Then a sound cut through the storm. Fast footsteps, slipping on wet stone.
They hurt
A young
the dog,
woman
Jack.
burst from the shadow of a
They
warehouse,
really hurt him.
sprinting into the street as if she'd been chased by the ocean itself. She was in her early 20s, maybe 24, slim and wiry, with long dark hair plastered to her cheeks in wet ropes. Her skin was light with an olive undertone, rainwater making her look pale and shaken. She wore a thin hoodie that clung to her shoulders and denim shorts that were wrong for this weather. Proof that she hadn't planned to be out here. Her eyes were wide, brown and frantic, scanning the street like every corner might
There.
bite. When she saw Ethan and Rex, she stumbled, almost falling. Rex stepped forward, body stiff, protective. "Please," the woman gasped, voice breaking. "Please, help me." Ethan lifted his hand slightly, not threatening,
This is
not
an
welcoming.
emergency. We're at
Careful.
the abandoned warehouse on 5th Street.
"Slow down,"
We need help now.
he said.
You need to
His
focus,
voice
Mia.
came out calm,
Go exactly
a
where I
tone he'd
told you.
used to bring people
the tunnel
back
is
from
the
panic.
only way out. Stick to the plan.
"What's your name?" "Mia," she choked out. "Mia Carter." Her words carried that American softness with a southern edge, as if she'd grown up not far from here. She hugged herself, trembling, not from cold alone. There was terror in her bones. Ethan clocked details without thinking. scraped knees, a bruise blooming on her left forearm,
Easy
a
now.
smear of grime across her cheek.
Stay right
Her
here.
hands were shaking so badly she could barely
Watch
point
the
back
left
toward
side.
the warehouse. They took my sister, Mia said, swallowing hard. Emily, they grabbed her. I tried to stop them. Ethan's stomach tightened. There are sentences that sound like sirens. That was one of them. Rex growled louder, staring into the darkness behind Mia as if he could see through walls. Ethan felt
You look
something
cold,
shift
Emily.
inside him.
We
An
don't have to
old
do
door
this.
opening.
I'm not afraid of you.
He had come to Savannah to be a ghost. But ghosts didn't help people. And tonight, a living girl was standing in front of him, soaked to the bone, begging with eyes that looked like they'd already learned what it meant to lose. Ethan took one step closer, keeping his body between Mia and the warehouse. Where exactly? He asked. Inside? Mia nodded quickly, tears mixing with rain. Back there, near the loading bay. I heard them. There were voices. Then Emily screamed and... Her voice cracked into a sob. Ethan looked toward the warehouse. The black mouth of a side entrance yawned under a flickering security light. Rain hammered the corrugated
What are you
metal
doing
roof
here?
like
Answer
impatient
me.
fingers. He glanced down at Rex. The dog's eyes locked onto his, steady and urgent. A command without words. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling the old instincts wake up, stretching their limbs like wolves. He didn't want this.
Hold him.
He
Stay
didn't
right
want
there.
to be the man who ran toward trouble again. But the storm didn't care what he wanted. And neither did his conscience. Stay behind me, Ethan told Mia, voice low but firm. Don't run unless I tell you. Mia nodded, clinging to his words like a life raft. Ethan tightened his grip on the leash. Rex leaned forward, ready. They moved toward the warehouse together. Three figures
right now,
entering
Emily?
a place where the rain couldn't
getting you
wash
out of
away what waited inside. And as Ethan crossed that threshold, he understood the cruel joke of survival. The past never truly leaves.
Where
It
is
just
Sarah?
waits for the right night
Go,
to
Emily.
come knocking.
Run!
The dark warehouse, and a promise paid in breath. Ethan Walker didn't step
Look
into
out,
the
the
warehouse
box.
like a hero.
Move,
He
move,
stepped
move,
in
move.
like
Get
a
back
man returning to a language
Stop right there.
his body spoke fluently.
It's
Angles,
okay, Mia.
shadows,
You're safe now.
exits,
I got you.
noise. The rain stayed outside, hissing against metal. But inside, the air was stale and sharp, thick with old dust and the sour bite of fuel. Rex went first. The German Shepherd's paws made almost no sound on the concrete. His shoulders rolled under wet fur, strong and quiet, his ears tall as antennae. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He simply moved forward with the controlled patience of a working dog, the kind that had learned to save energy for the instant it mattered. Mia hovered behind Ethan, hugging herself, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. Under the flicker of a dying light, Ethan saw just how young she was. 24, with a delicate face and stubborn eyebrows. The kind of girl who probably apologized when she bumped into furniture, but the fear had burned the softness off her voice. It had left her raw. I got a text, she whispered, as if the walls could hear. From an unknown number. It said, "Don't look for her, or I'll regret it." Ethan's
Go,
jaw
run.
tightened.
He's got a plank.
Show me,
back.
Leave
he
him alone.
murmured. Mia fumbled for her phone. The screen glowed, illuminating her trembling hands and the smear of grime on her knuckles. The message sat there like a curse. Don't look. You'll regret it. No signature. No explanation. Just a threat that assumed
Hey,
obedience.
what's wrong, boy? Are you okay?
Ethan felt something hot, old and bitter rise in his chest. People who threatened the weak relied on one thing, the belief that no one would come. He wasn't sure why he was coming, but he was. He raised his flashlight and swept it low, never into open space, never high. The beam skimmed over stacked pallets, broken crates, and a row of abandoned freezers along the far wall. A faint hum came from somewhere deeper inside, like an insect trapped in a jar.
Fall back.
Rex paused, nostrils flaring. Then his head snapped toward the left. Ethan followed the dog's gaze and saw, subtle but wrong, a side door near the old cold storage section, hanging slightly crooked, the lock plate cracked. Fresh damage, not storm damage, human damage. Ethan's brain clicked into motion. There, he breathed. Mia swallowed. Is Emily in there? Ethan didn't answer. Promises were dangerous. He'd learned that the hard way. He pulled his phone out and dialed. When the dispatcher answered, Ethan kept his voice steady, giving the location, the nature of the situation, and a short description of Mia's report. He didn't dramatize, he didn't beg. He simply put facts on the line like bricks. When he ended the call, he looked at Mia. "Police are coming," he said, "but you stay behind me. And if I say run, you run. No arguing." Mia nodded so fast it looked like she was trying to shake courage into her bones. Ethan gestured for Rex to heel. They moved. The broken side door opened into a narrower corridor that smelled like damp cardboard and metal. Water dripped somewhere in the dark. The air grew colder as they approached the cold storage area, like the building still remembered ice.
Don't stop
A sound
until we
reached
reach
them.
the extraction point.
Voices. Men's voices.
This way, quickly
Low,
now.
impatient.
Mind the
A
puddles.
sharp clink of metal against metal,
so dark.
followed by a
Are
muffled
you sure
curse.
this is faster?
Ethan slowed, shoulders tightening, every sense tuned. He eased Mia back with a flat hand, then crouched, bringing his face close to Rex's ear. "Easy," he whispered. Rex's body trembled with restrained force. A coiled spring. Ethan edged forward until he could see into the larger room. The scene snapped into focus in a narrow slice of flashlight glow. 3 men moved around a stack of industrial barrels and taped boxes. They were dressed for rain and anonymity, hoods up, dark jackets, gloves.
Church.
Their faces were half hidden, but Ethan caught glimpses. One was tall and narrow with a long nose. Another stockier with a shaved head that reflected light like wet stone. The third had a beard so thick it made his jawline look
Come on, get
twice as
inside.
wide.
Move.
We made it!
And behind the barrels, partly obscured, was a woman, Emily Carter. Even bound, she looked like someone who refused to be erased. She was around 29, medium height, with chestnut brown hair pulled back in a messy knot that had come loose.
Sister
Her
Helen,
skin was pale
thank you
under
for
the
this.
harsh overhead light, but her eyes, green,
I found it.
bright,
Here are
furious,
the journals.
burned
Thank you,
with a
sister.
stubborn will.
You need to go.
Duct
God,
tape
Emily.
crossed her mouth.
Let me see your wrists.
Her wrists were tied
She's
behind
okay.
her to
The
a
dog
metal
is the one
chair.
hurt.
And you're
One cheek
favoring
was
that knee, aren't you?
swelling, as if someone
We
had
need an
struck
exit.
her.
And we need a
Mia's
phone
breath
right
caught
now.
behind Ethan like a small,
Please.
strangled sound. Ethan didn't turn. He couldn't.
Him.
We have to
Every
go
part
now.
of him knew
Yes.
that turning toward fear was how you got killed. One of the men spoke,
Sit here
annoyed.
quickly.
Load it faster.
with me.
We're behind. The bearded man spat to the side.
We're
Should have
okay,
dumped the
Helen.
girl
Keep your
already.
violence out of
Too
this
much
place.
noise. Emily made a sound behind the tape, muffled, defiant.
Understood.
Ethan's knuckles
All right, buddy,
whitened
just
around
hold
the
on. It's
flashlight.
gonna be okay.
He scanned the room.
Whimper. Deep
No
breaths,
obvious
breath, please. Stay
firearms.
with me. No.
That mattered. Not because a gun was the only danger, but because it changed the shape of the next 10 seconds. Then something moved. An extra beam of light swept across the wall like a searching blade. A fourth man stepped out from behind a shelf, holding a
You need
flashlight
this.
and a metal
Go.
baton. He was in his 40s,
Yeah?
lean,
Hello?
with sharp cheekbones
It's me,
and a mouth that
Tell
looked
them where we are.
permanently dissatisfied.
Men who care about ownership,
His
they'll
hair
always
was
choose
dark
their
and
ambition
slicked
over
back
anything
under a
else.
cap.
I know.
The baton in his hand
seen it
wasn't
too.
just a tool, it was a habit.
I understand ownership,
He angled
Sister
the
Helen.
flashlight around the room, and for a fraction of
I've
a
known
second,
what it
the
means
beam
to be
caught
owned.
Ethan's shoulder. Ethan froze. Too late.
Hey!
The man barked. The flashlight snapped onto Ethan's face like an accusation. In that harsh white glare, there was no hiding. No ghosting through life. No quiet porch. No safety in anonymity. Ethan was simply a man standing in a dark place where someone else's sister was
closely.
tied to a chair.
When they call, you must
The
not tell them
baton
where we
man's
are.
eyes narrowed.
Tell them you're alone and you need
Who the
help.
hell are you?
Through the
The
back
three
courtyard.
others turned,
Stay low.
confusion
Wait for my
shifting
signal.
into aggression.
Understood.
Now.
Ethan's mind moved faster than speech. Distance. 10 feet to the nearest shelf.
The guardian
12
waits.
to Emily. Too far to reach her before
ready.
they reached him.
A storm passes.
But Rex was already
I'm afraid
moving.
I'm much worse than that.
The German shepherd launched forward with controlled fury. Not wild, not chaotic. He didn't aim for the throat. He aimed for the baton arm. Teeth clamped onto sleeve and forearm, forcing the man's wrist to twist. The baton clanged to the ground. The man screamed, stumbling backward. Ethan surged forward in the same instant, body low, using the shelf as partial cover.
Be safe out there, son.
He
I'll
moved
draw
like
him
a
away.
practiced answer.
Just keep him safe.
One hand grabbed Emily's chair. The other cut at the tape around her mouth. Emily's breath burst free in a gasp. "Run," Ethan said, voice like steel. "Now." Behind them, chaos erupted. Shouts, footsteps, a crash as someone knocked over a box. Mia appeared in the doorway, face white as seafoam. "Emily!" she cried.
Back here, you hear me?
Emily's
We're gonna catch
eyes
ya.
widened with relief and terror at the same time. Ethan yanked at the rope binding Emily's wrists. The knot was crude. It gave with a jerk. Then a heavy shape slammed into Ethan's side. The stocky man, shaved head, thick shoulders, hit him like a tackle. Ethan staggered, shoulders slamming into a barrel. Pain flashed, bright and immediate. The man raised a fist. Ethan caught the punch on his forearm and drove an elbow into the man's ribs. The man grunted, but he didn't fall. He swung again. Ethan's brain split into two parts, the part that fought and the part that tracked Rex. Rex was still locked onto the baton man, keeping him off balance, snarling low. The bearded man hesitated, looking for an opening. The long-nosed man circled, grabbing a wooden plank from the floor, like he'd been waiting for permission to become cruel. Ethan saw it all in a blink. He made a choice. He grabbed Emily by the elbow and shoved her toward Mia. "Get her out," he snapped. "Go!" Mia grabbed Emily, half carrying her. Emily stumbled, barefoot, but moving. The plank man lunged toward them. Rex released the baton man and pivoted, blocking the path with his body, teeth bared, eyes blazing. A living wall. The plank came down. Rex dodged just enough that the wood clipped his shoulder instead of his head. Rex yelped. One sharp sound, more insult than defeat, then snapped his jaws inches from the man's wrist, forcing him back. Ethan's stomach twisted. Not Rex. Not again. But there was no time to mourn. The shaved head man grabbed Ethan's jacket, trying to drag him down. Ethan planted his boots, twisted, and used the man's momentum against him, slamming him into the barrel hard enough that the man's breath left him in a wet grunt. Ethan looked toward the exit. Mia and Emily were almost out. Rex was limping slightly now, favoring his front leg, but still holding the line like a soldier who refused to
Rex,
retreat.
What happened?
Ethan moved to
Let me
Rex,
see your leg.
hand reaching for
Just
the
hold
dog's
still.
harness. "Fall
It's gonna be
back,"
all right,
he
buddy.
commanded, voice tight. Rex obeyed instantly, backing toward Ethan, still facing the men, still warning them with a growl that said, One
Come on,
more
the cops
step
are here.
and you'll
We
regret
gotta
the
move.
shape of
Hurry
your
up.
life. The baton man, clutching his arm, spat on the floor.
It's okay, buddy.
You're dead,
Help
man.
is here. Just hold on.
Ethan didn't answer. He didn't waste breath on men who mistook cruelty for strength. He grabbed Rex and pulled him toward the corridor. They ran. Not in panic. Ethan didn't do panic. They ran in clean, urgent motion, guided by survival and the sound of distant sirens beginning to rise, like a promise the night
Hands
could
where we
not
can see
ignore. Behind them, the warehouse roared with furious voices. Ahead, the rain and the open air waited.
Take it easy, officers.
And as
My
Ethan
hands are
burst
open.
out into
We
the
mean no
storm,
harm.
with Rex limping at his side, he realized something sharp and strange.
Sir, my name is Officer Bennett.
He had just crossed a line he'd sworn
but
never to
we
cross
received a
again.
call about activity in this area.
He had chosen to be the
He's hit
man who
bad,
stepped
but he
into
can still
darkness.
track. They went
And
into
now,
the pines right there.
The darkness knew
If
his
we don't
name.
follow now,
the
they're
chase
gone.
through the old city. Rain needled Ethan Walker's
help is
face
coming.
as he
We're getting you
hauled
and the dog
Emily out of
inside.
the warehouse
Just keep 'em
yard
calm for a
and
minute.
into the open streets. The storm turning Savannah's
Please.
cobblestones into slick black glass. Sirens wailed somewhere behind them, close enough
right,
to
let's get
promise
this wrapped
help,
up gently.
far enough to feel like a
You're doing
cruel
great, boy.
joke.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mia
I
clung
was
to her
worried.
sister's
keep
arm,
'em still
half
for me.
running, half stumbling,
Hey there,
while
buddy.
Emily fought
Let's
to
take
stay
a look.
upright, barefoot and
Looks
shaking,
like you're okay.
her wrists raw from rope. Rex kept pace at Ethan's left side, limping now, his front leg favoring each step.
He's everything.
But his head stayed high, ears locked forward, as if
Suspect
pain
spotted.
was merely weather.
Riverwalk.
Ethan's mind
Units
was already
converging.
mapping the city the way it used to map foreign villages.
Easy there,
Corners, alleys,
all right to trouble.
bottlenecks, places where men who wanted you could
You
trap
held the
you.
line.
He knew the warehouse crew had seen his face.
I will be.
He knew the baton man's
Never call
snarl
me.
hadn't been empty. And he knew Savannah, for all its charm, had too many
Look,
narrow
his
passages
spleen
where
is
a
likely
person could
compromised.
disappear. They
We
cut
need to
down a
get him to a
side street
veterinary
lined
clinic
with brick
immediately,
buildings and
or we
shuttered
risk internal
windows,
bleeding.
past a wrought iron fence dripping rain
I'll
like
take 'em.
tears. Mia gasped. They're coming! And Ethan didn't need to look back to believe
Careful
her.
with his leg.
The sound of footsteps,
All right,
hard,
lift.
urgent, slapped the stones behind them, steady as a metronome.
You're gonna
A
be okay,
flashlight
boy.
beam
Just
swept across a wall,
hold on, I
then
gotcha.
vanished. Another beam flashed across the puddles like a knife searching for blood. Keep your heads down, Ethan said,
You
voice low.
stubborn beast.
No screaming, no stopping. He guided them into a narrow lane that smelled of wet magnolia and old garbage.
here to help
Then out again onto a broader street lit by lamps that made everything look antique and unreal. Emily's breathing was ragged. The tape had left red marks around her mouth, and her green eyes were wide with shock. But underneath it, Ethan caught something else. Fury held in check. She wasn't a damsel. She was a woman
Mia,
who had
listen to me.
survived the first wave
Rex is alive.
and was trying not to
He's
drown
hurt,
in
but
the
he's gonna be
second.
okay. He's
Rex
strong.
stumbled once. Ethan felt the leash jerk, heard the dog's quick exhale, and for a heartbeat, his chest tightened with an old, familiar terror. Not Rex.
I called ahead about 10
Not
minutes
after
ago.
everything.
This is Sarge. He
Ethan's
seemed to
hand
have cut his
slid to the
paw out
dog's
there.
harness and steadied him without
Based
slowing
on the
down.
physical exam, I think he's going to be
Good.
fine.
Ethan murmured.
We just need to wait on the
A
blood
word
work.
meant more for himself than for the dog.
The good news
Rex's
is it's just a
amber
sprain
eyes
and some
flicked up
bruising.
at him.
Nothing is broken.
Still lucid,
That's
still
a relief,
loyal.
Doc. Thank you.
And the dog pushed forward again, limping but refusing to fall
Thanks.
behind.
Thank you, Doctor.
They reached
really
an
appreciate it.
intersection where the rain blurred the world into streaks of gold and gray.
So are you.
Ethan paused just
But you
long
look
enough
like
to
a
listen.
man who forgets to
Footsteps
recover.
to the rear. Another set, faintly to the right, cutting them off. The men were splitting. Ethan had seen that tactic in places where the streetlights never worked, and the rules were written in fear. He tasted metal at the back of his throat and forced his breathing to remain calm. Panic was loud. Calm was invisible. Church, Mia whispered
I had to get
suddenly,
proof.
pointing with
I
her
snapped
free
the
hand.
picture of the
Across
label,
the street,
and that's when they grabbed
tucked
me.
between two older buildings,
was
a small
terrifying.
chapel stood with its wooden doors cracked open, a warm glow
Emily
spilling
was trying to
onto
do the
wet
right thing.
stones. A sign hung crooked on the brick. St. Bridget's,
I didn't know it would
open
be
for
this.
prayer. It looked like something out of a postcard, except the postcards never showed men hunting you in the rain. Ethan didn't hesitate. He ushered them across the street into the chapel, Rex limping beside them. Inside, the air was warmer, scented faintly with candle wax and old wood. The rain's roar softened, muffled by thick walls. A handful of candles flickered near the altar, and the stained glass windows threw dim colors onto the floor like bruised jewels. The place felt ancient, like it had been built for confession. A woman stood near the front pews, arranging hymn books as if it were any other night. She turned at the sound of the door. She was in her late 50s, medium height, with a sturdy build that suggested she'd lifted more than prayers in her life. Her hair was silver and braided down her back, and her skin was deep brown, with fine lines that spoke of sun and laughter. Her eyes were sharp and steady, the kind that didn't flinch easily. A simple cross hung at her throat. She looked at Ethan, then at the two soaked young women, then at Rex, and something in her expression shifted from surprise to decision. "I'm Sister Helen," she said quietly, voice firm but not unkind. "You're bleeding." Her gaze landed on Emily's wrists, then on Rex's limping leg. "And you're being followed." Ethan didn't bother denying it. "We need a back exit," he said, "and a phone." He hated asking, hated needing, but he hated leaving people to wolves more. Sister Helen nodded once, like she'd already chosen her role in the story. "There's a side sacristy door," she said. "Leads to the courtyard. Phone is in the office." She moved fast, practical, not panicked. "Sit her down," she added, gesturing to Emily. "You," she pointed to Mia, "breathe before you faint." Then she looked at Ethan. "And you, soldier, don't bring violence into my chapel." Ethan's mouth twitched despite the situation. "I'll try," he said, and it came out almost like a joke. Sister Helen's eyes narrowed, as if she could tell he was the type to carry storms inside him. Emily sat on a pew, shivering. Mia knelt in front of her, whispering frantic reassurances. Ethan crouched beside Rex, running his hand down the dog's shoulder. The fur was wet and matted, and when Ethan pressed gently near the joint, Rex flinched, just once, then steadied himself again. The dog's breathing was faster than normal. Pain was real, but so was his stubbornness. Outside, footsteps scraped on stone. A flashlight beam slid across the stained glass window, turning it into a sudden, eerie lantern. Ethan's muscles tightened. They were here. Sister Helen returned with a landline receiver and shoved it into Mia's hand. "Call," she said. "Now." Then she looked at Ethan again, her voice dropping. "They won't come inside
I just
if
didn't
they
know
think
where else
God
to
is
turn.
watching," she murmured.
It felt like everything
But
was
some
falling
men
apart,
don't care about
and
God.
I couldn't see a way out.
They care about ownership. Ethan's eyes hardened. Ownership. That word had haunted too many missions. It had justified too much
God's
cruelty.
peace be with you, Emily.
The chapel
are
door
here for you.
rattled. A
Thank
voice
you, Sister
outside,
Helen.
male, sharp, called out, "We know you're in there." Mia's face went white. Emily's hands clenched into fists.
You're doing good, buddy.
Ethan made a decision
almost
in the
home
space
now.
between two heartbeats. If the men stayed focused on the chapel, Mia and Emily would be trapped. If Ethan moved, he could pull the danger away from them. It wasn't heroism, it was tactics, the kind his body understood. He leaned close to Mia. "Tell them you're inside a church," he whispered. "Tell them you've got help coming. Don't hang up. Keep talking." He turned to Sister Helen. "Get them out the back," he said. "Courtyard, then left. There's a street with more light. Don't stop." Sister Helen's eyes met his. For a moment, The chapel's candlelight made her look like something mythic, an old guardian at the gate of a sanctuary. "You're going to be the storm," she said softly. Ethan stood. "I've been worse," he replied, and his voice held no pride, only weariness. He unclipped Rex's leash and crouched, bringing his forehead to the dogs for a brief second. "Stay with them," he murmured. Rex whined once, low, as if protesting. Ethan scratched behind the dog's ear, the spot that always calmed him, then gave a short hand signal Rex had learned years ago. Guard, protect, hold. Rex shifted instantly, planting himself near Mia and Emily like a living shield, limp and
The
all.
morning sun is beautiful today.
Ethan moved toward the side door Sister Helen had indicated, keeping his steps quiet.
That's a good sign.
The sacristy door opened into a small courtyard slick with rain. Ivy climbed the brick walls, and a statue of Mary stood with water running down her face like tears. Ethan slipped through and out into a narrow alley behind the church, forcing himself to breathe slowly, forcing his mind to stay clean. Footsteps followed. They had seen him. A flashlight snapped on, sweeping the alley. Ethan ran, not straight, never straight, cutting left, then right, doubling back through a passage between two buildings. He heard shouted curses behind him. He heard the splatter of boots in puddles. He felt Savannah's old city closing around him like a fist. He emerged near the riverfront, where the wind hit harder, whipping rain into his eyes. The water below was black and churning, the current fast and hungry. A low stone barrier lined the edge. Beyond it, the river waited like an open mouth. Two men stepped into his path. One was the long-nosed one, now closer, his face pale under the street lamp, eyes jittery with adrenaline. The other was the shaved head man, shoulders hunched like a bull preparing to charge. They weren't alone. Behind Ethan, more footsteps closed in. He was boxed. The long-nosed man lifted a piece of metal pipe, jaw tight. The shaved head man smiled without humor, as if pain was entertainment. "Thought you could play hero," he growled. Ethan's hands rose. Not surrender, not submission. Ready. His brain cataloged. Pipe, fists, river, low wall, wind. He could fight. He could run. But the river was a cliff in disguise. One wrong step, and the current would do what bullets couldn't. The shaved head man lunged, trying to drive Ethan backward. Ethan sidestepped, grabbed the man's jacket, and used his momentum to slam him into the stone barrier. The long-nosed man swung the pipe. Ethan ducked, the metal whooshing over his head, and drove a short punch into the man's ribs. The man gasped, but didn't drop the pipe. Then a hand shoved Ethan's shoulder hard. Ethan's boot skidded on wet stone. For a split second, his balance teetered. The river yawned behind him. And in that instant, the old fear returned. Not fear of death, but fear of loss. Fear that saving someone always costs something else. Fear that the moment you let hope in, it demanded payment. A shadow flew into the light with a rough, determined snarl. Rex. The German shepherd, limping and soaked, had followed anyway. He launched at the long-nosed man, not to destroy, but to stop, clamping his teeth onto the man's jacket sleeve and yanking him off balance. The pipe clattered away. The man screamed, flailing. Ethan seized the opening, shoving the shaved-head man back with all his strength, then turning to pull Rex away from the river's edge. "Rex!" he barked, voice cracking with something dangerously close to panic. Rex's injured leg buckled. The dog hit the stones hard, chest heaving, breath coming in fast, wet bursts. His eyes stayed on Ethan, not accusing, not afraid, only loyal. Too loyal. Ethan dropped to his knees beside him, rain soaking through his jacket. His hands shook as he checked Rex's leg, his throat tightening like a fist. He could hear the men recovering behind him, could hear their angry voices. But all he could see was the dog's trembling flank, the stubborn rise and fall of his breath. For a heartbeat, Ethan forgot the chase. He saw another night, another loss, another body he couldn't save. And the terror was the same. "Not you," Ethan whispered fiercely, as if the words could command the universe. "Not you too." In the distance, sirens grew louder, closer now, urgent, real. The men cursed and began to retreat into the dark, melting away like rats when the lights came on. Ethan stayed on the wet stones, one hand on Rex's chest, feeling the dog's heartbeat hammering beneath his palm. Above them, Savannah's lamps flickered, and the river kept moving, indifferent. Ethan bowed his head over Rex's fur, breathing in the familiar scent beneath rain and fear. And for the first time in years, he realized the most dangerous thing in the world wasn't the men who chased them. It was the hope that had returned. Because hope made you care enough to bleed. Dawn, a family stitched back together. Sirens finally arrived, like a choir that had been practicing in another world. Their red and blue light washing over the riverfront stones and turning the rain into glittering shards. Ethan stayed on his knees beside Rex, one hand pressed to the dog's chest, the other braced on the slick cobblestone, as if he could anchor both of them to the earth by sheer will. Rex's breath came in wet, trembling pulls, his injured leg tucked awkwardly under him. But his eyes, those steady amber eyes, remained fixed on Ethan with a trust that felt almost mythic, like the loyalty of an old hound guarding a fallen king. Ethan's throat tightened. He had carried men out of dark places before. He had watched life slip through fingers no matter how hard he squeezed. And now, of all nights, the one creature that had kept him from turning into a ghost was the one lying broken in the rain. "Stay," Ethan whispered, the word more prayer than command. "Just stay with me." Boots slapped through puddles. Flashlights swept the area in quick, professional arcs. A police officer called out, "Hands where we can see them!" And Ethan lifted his free hand without argument, palm open, his posture calm but alert. He could already feel the old instinct to explain in clipped sentences, to sound harmless and useful. Another officer approached carefully, a young man with a square jaw and a thin mustache that made him look older than he was. His name tag read, Officer Bennett. He kept his tone firm but not cruel, the way someone speaks when they've learned fear is contagious. "Sir, step back from the dog," Bennett said. Ethan didn't move immediately. He pointed to Rex's leg, then to the dark stretch where the men had fled. "They ran that way," he said. "My dog's hurt. 2 women, Mia and Emily Carter, are in or near St. Bridget's Chapel. They need an officer with them." Bennett's eyes flicked from Ethan's rain-soaked face to the dog's heaving body and softened a fraction. "Copy," he called over his shoulder, voice rising into the storm. "Units to St. Bridget's. We've got a canine injury and possible victims." Then he crouched, keeping a careful distance, and spoke lower. "You the one who called it in?" Ethan nodded. "Yes." Bennett studied him for a heartbeat, noticing the discipline in how Ethan held himself, the way he scanned even while kneeling. "Former military," Bennett guessed. Ethan didn't correct him. "Please," Ethan said, and hated how the words scraped his pride. "Help the dog." A second figure hurried in behind Bennett, shorter and broader, wearing a dark paramedic jacket with reflective strips. She was a woman in her late 30s, hair pulled into a tight bun under a cap, face freckled and stern in the way of people who have seen too much blood to waste time on drama. Her patch read Sarah Linden, EMS. She knelt immediately beside Rex, her movements brisk but gentle, like hands trained to be both fast and kind. "Hey there, buddy," Sarah murmured, her voice a warm rope thrown into panic. She ran fingers along Rex's shoulder, then down the leg. Rex flinched and let out a low whine, but didn't snap. Sarah glanced up at Ethan. "He's a good dog," she said, the compliment carrying the weight of professional
Ready to keep going,
respect.
old friend.
Ethan swallowed hard. "He's everything," Ethan replied, before he could stop himself. More officers appeared, fanning out, their radios crackling. The chase became a net. Ethan caught fragments. "Suspects spotted. Riverwalk. Units converging." In the distance, a shout rose, then another. Someone hit the ground with a wet thud. The storm swallowed the rest. Bennett stayed near Ethan, and for a moment, Ethan saw the young officer's hands trembling slightly as he re-gripped his flashlight. "You okay?" Bennett asked, as if Ethan were the injured one. Ethan gave a short, humorless breath. "I will be," he said. The lie was small, but it kept him moving. Sarah finished a quick assessment and looked at Ethan again, her freckled face firm. "He needs a veterinary clinic," she said, "not just rest on a porch." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I'll take him." Sarah shook her head. "Not alone, and not on foot." She called out to an officer, and within seconds, a patrol vehicle rolled closer. Sarah and Ethan carefully lifted Rex, heavier than he looked, solid as a promise, guiding him into the back of the cruiser. Rex panted, eyes bright with pain, but when Ethan climbed in beside him and pressed his forehead briefly to Rex's, the dog's breathing eased, just enough. Ethan's hands shook as he stroked Rex's fur. "You stubborn beast," he whispered, and the words broke into something like a laugh and something like a sob at the same time. At St. Bridget's, the courtyard lights glowed through rain. Mia and Emily stood under the chapel's eaves with Sister Helen. Mia's face was streaked with tears, her shoulders shaking as she clung to Emily like a child afraid to blink. Emily's posture was straighter now, despite the bruises, chin lifted, as if she refused to let terror own the last word. When she saw Ethan, she stepped forward and her green eyes filled. "You came back," she said. Ethan nodded, unable to find anything clever. Mia made a sound and rushed toward him, then stopped when she saw Rex being carried. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Is he—" "He's alive," Ethan said quickly. "He's just hurt." Mia collapsed into sobs, and Emily wrapped her arms around her sister with the fierce tenderness of someone who had almost been stolen from the world. Officer Bennett spoke with Sister Helen while Sarah relayed directions to the nearest animal hospital. Ethan caught pieces of it. Suspects detained near the river, evidence in the warehouse, EMTs checking Emily's wrists. The night was turning from chaos into paperwork, from terror into a timeline. Ethan should have felt relief. Instead, he felt hollow, like the storm had rinsed something out of him and left him bare. Later, at the veterinary clinic, an all-night place that smelled of antiseptic and wet fur, Ethan sat on a plastic chair while a veterinarian examined Rex. The doctor was a man in his early 50s, with kind eyes behind rectangular glasses and a salt and pepper beard trimmed short. His name tag read, Dr. Patel. He spoke softly, with the calm authority of someone who had seen every kind of fear in every kind of animal. "Sprain and bruising," Dr. Patel said after x-rays and careful hands. "No fracture. He'll limp for a while, but he'll heal." Ethan's breath left him in a shaky exhale that felt like he'd been holding it for years. "Thank you," Ethan managed. Dr. Patel nodded once. "He's brave," he added, and then, seeing Ethan's face, he said something quieter. "And so are you. But you look like a man who forgets to recover." Ethan stayed all night. Rex lay on a padded blanket, bandaged, drowsy from pain meds. But whenever Ethan's hand rested on his neck, the dog's ears twitched as if he recognized the touch even through sleep. In the gray hours before dawn, Emily arrived with Mia. Emily had her wrists wrapped, a bruised cheek, and a steadiness that looked hard-earned. "I need to tell you why they took me," she said, voice low. Ethan looked up, and Mia hovered behind her like a frightened shadow. Emily swallowed. "I work nights at a restaurant near the docks," she said. "I noticed men meeting behind the kitchen. Heard them talk about moving product through the old warehouse, fuel barrels, taped boxes. I took a photo of a shipping label because it felt wrong." Her eyes narrowed with remembered fear. "They saw me. They followed me after my shift. That's why." Mia's face crumpled. "You were trying to do the right thing," Mia whispered. Emily nodded. "I didn't think it would be this," she admitted, and her voice shook for the first time. "If you hadn't come, I don't know where I'd be." Ethan stared at Rex. In his mind, the dog's earlier words, silent, steady, echoed like a lesson. Sometimes the ocean gives you something that survived everything. He wanted to say he hadn't done it for praise. He wanted to say he wasn't a hero. He wanted to say he was a man who had failed people before and couldn't bear to fail again. Instead, he simply said, "You're here," because that was the only truth that mattered. When morning finally bled into Savannah, soft gold under thinning clouds, Emily held out a small box. We wanted to thank him," she said, nodding toward Rex. Inside was a new collar, dark leather with a simple metal plate engraved with one word: home. Ethan's throat tightened until he couldn't speak. He lifted the collar carefully, as if it were something sacred. Rex's eyes opened halfway, and his tail thumped once against the blanket. Weak, but pleased. Ethan didn't take credit. He didn't pose for pictures. When Officer Bennett later offered him a ride home and a statement form, Ethan signed what he had to sign and declined the rest. He had spent too long being a tool in someone else's story. He wanted, for once, to be a man who simply lived. A few days later, when Rex could walk again, still limping but stubbornly upright, Ethan took him to the shoreline at sunrise. The storm had passed. The ocean looked calmer, the sky painted in gentle peach and pale blue. Mia and Emily stood farther down the beach, waving. Sister Helen, in a simple coat, watched from the edge of the dunes like a guardian satisfied her chapel had done its job. Ethan lifted a hand in return. He felt something unfamiliar on his face, wet, warm, and light. He realized it was tears, but not the heavy kind that dragged him under. These were different. These were the kind that came when a man discovered he could still be saved, too. He glanced down at Rex, now wearing the new collar. Home gleamed in the morning light. Ethan took a breath, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was running away. He felt like he was walking toward something. Not every crack ends in breaking, Grace had once told him in another life. Some cracks are where the light gets in. And in Savannah's dawn, with a limping dog beside him and two sisters alive because he chose to step into darkness, Ethan let that light touch him, without flinching. Some nights feel like nothing but rain and noise. Just one more problem, one more weight, one more wound you're sure will never heal. But dawn has a way of proving us wrong. If there's a miracle in this story, it isn't that danger vanished. It's that help showed up, quietly, stubbornly, right when it mattered. Maybe that's how God works most of the time. Not with thunder from the sky, but with a door left open when you've run out of places to go. With a stranger who chooses courage over comfort. With a loyal dog who refuses to quit. With a second chance arriving in the middle of an ordinary street. So here's the question to carry into your everyday life. When someone near you is hurting, at work, in your neighborhood, even in your own home, will you be the person who shows up? Because sometimes your smallest act of kindness becomes the answer to someone else's prayer. And sometimes the miracle you're waiting for is the miracle God wants to do through you. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell me, have you ever seen a small miracle in your life? Something that felt like God's hand guiding you, even if it came through ordinary people. And if you'd like more stories about real pain, real love, and real second chances, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next one. May God bless you, protect your home, and surround you with the kind of love that doesn't leave, especially on the nights when you feel alone. Amen.